In May 2021, Naomi Osaka told the world she was not doing well, and 4 governing bodies of professional tennis responded with a fine and a ban threat. That is the entire story. Everything else is context, but the context matters. Because this is not just what happened to Naomi Osaka. This is what happens when the most powerful athlete in women's sports uses that power to say no. And the institutions built around her decide that no is not an acceptable answer. If you've been following women's sports and you want to understand how institutional power actually works, stay with me. Subscribe if you're new here. This channel covers stories like this with the depth they deserve. By May 2021, Naomi Osaka was not simply a tennis player. She was the highest paid female athlete in the history of professional sports. Forbes had calculated her annual earnings at $55.2 million, a number that included 4 Grand Slam titles, endorsement deals with Nike, Nissan, MasterCard, and a portfolio that extended well beyond tennis into fashion, film production, and ownership stakes in sports franchises. She was 23 years old. She had won her first Grand Slam at 20, defeating Serena Williams in the US Open final in 2018, in a match that became one of the most controversial in the sport's modern history. She had won 3 more. She had reached world number 1, and she had done all of it while navigating an identity that professional sports had never quite known how to handle. She was biracial, Japanese-American, born in Osaka, raised in the United States, representing Japan in international competition, and had been selected to light the Olympic torch at the Tokyo 2020 Games. The weight of what that meant, to carry 2 national identities, to be one nation's symbol of athletic excellence while being claimed by another, was not something the press conference format was designed to address. On May 26, 2021, before the start of Roland Garros, she posted a statement. She would not be participating in mandatory post-match press conferences during the tournament. She cited the mental health of athletes. She noted that athletes are routinely asked to sit in front of journalists and field questions designed to trigger doubt, provoke reaction, and generate controversy, and that no serious conversation about athlete well-being had ever examined what that process costs the person in the chair. She offered to pay any fines. She was not combative. The statement was measured. The response from the 4 governing bodies of professional tennis, the WTA, the ATP, the International Tennis Federation, and the organizations representing all 4 Grand Slams, arrived the same day. It was a joint statement. It threatened fines of $15,000 for each press conference missed. It raised the possibility of future suspension from Grand Slam tournaments across the calendar. She played her first-round match at Roland Garros. She won. She skipped the press conference. The fine arrived. 5 days later, on May 31st, she withdrew from the tournament. And in the statement she published that day, she said something that had not been part of her original announcement. She said she had experienced bouts of depression since the US Open in 2018, since the moment she had first become a Grand Slam champion. She said press conferences had been a significant source of anxiety throughout her career. She had not wanted to disclose this initially. The institutional response forced her hand. The timing of that disclosure matters. She won the US Open in 2018. She has described struggling with her mental health since that exact moment, since the peak of her visible professional achievement. The public did not know this. The governing bodies that fined her did not ask. Osaka also withdrew from Wimbledon. She returned for the Tokyo Olympics, held in her birth country, carrying the torch. But she lost in the 3rd round and said afterward that the weight of expectation had felt crushing. She took the rest of 2021 away from competitive tennis. The institutions did not offer a restructured press conference format. They did not convene a working group on athlete mental health. They issued a joint statement threatening financial penalties and expulsion. And then, once the story generated significant backlash, they issued carefully worded expressions of support that did not include the withdrawal of the fine. Her sponsors responded differently. Nike, MasterCard, and others issued statements backing Osaka. The commercial entities associated with her responded with support. the governing bodies of the sport responded with punishment. The people profiting from her name and image supported her right to protect herself. The people with authority over her continued access to competition did not. The press conference format in professional tennis has not substantively changed since Osaka's withdrawal. Players still sit at a table, alone, immediately after competition, win or lose, and answer questions from a rotating group of journalists. The format exists because media access generates coverage that generates revenue. The athlete is the source. What the source experiences during that process has historically not been part of the cost calculation. Osaka is not the first athlete to have found press conferences adversarial. She is, however, one of the first to say so publicly with enough commercial leverage that refusing was a credible option. And the system's response to that refusal was to demonstrate, as clearly as it possibly could, that leverage and protection are not the same thing. There is a specific cruelty in the timeline. Osaka disclosed her depression after winning her first Grand Slam. She was 20. She was the most talked about athlete in the sport, and for 3 years, she had continued to compete, to win, to earn, to represent, to carry, without the institutions around her knowing or asking what any of it had cost. When she finally said publicly, "I am not doing well and I need to protect myself," the first response was a fine. The second was a threat of exclusion from the sport she had helped make more commercially valuable than it had been before she arrived. She also described the specific difficulty of navigating press conferences as a biracial athlete representing Japan in a predominantly white sport dominated by Western media. The questions she faced were not always questions a European player at the same ranking would have received. The representational weight she carried, for Japan, for Asian athletes, for Black athletes, for biracial identity in professional sports, was not part of any official calculation. It was simply added to the existing structure and expected to be managed silently. Naomi Osaka returned to the tour. She won tournaments. She had a daughter in 2023. She came back to professional tennis in January 2024 and reached the third round of the Australian Open less than a year after giving birth. The harder frame, the one that does not resolve cleanly, is this. She told a system she was struggling, and the system's first instinct was to punish her for saying so. She was the most commercially powerful woman in her sport. She had more money, more global recognition, more endorsement infrastructure than any female athlete in the history of professional sports. And none of that protected her from a $15,000 fine issued within 24 hours of disclosing that she was not doing well. If it did not protect her, consider what it means for the athletes who cannot afford to walk away from the fine, who cannot afford to withdraw from the tournament, who carry the same weight and none of the leverage. They are still sitting at the table. They are still answering questions they were never asked whether they could handle. The system did not change after Naomi Osaka said no. That is the detail worth holding on to, not what she did, but what the system decided not to do once she showed them exactly what it was.